What is going on, people of the extranet? Tyler here with Random Automotive. Today we're going to talk to you about an issue that's pretty common across the board on all vehicles, and it's a misfire. A misfire is basically, there's two elements that go into a combustion engine, and that's fuel and spark. And when one cylinder or multiple cylinders isn't firing, it causes a misfire condition. Let me give you an example of what that sounds like. Oh yeah, she's still misfiring. Sometimes a misfire will throw a check engine light, and a check engine light basically can do one of two things. If it's a newer vehicle, sometimes sorry, I had an itch, like always. They throw a flashing check engine light. Sometimes it's just a solid check engine light that comes on, and you have to check the codes. And when you pull the codes, you may get one of up to 12 codes if you have 12 cylinders. But basically, it starts with P0300, and that's a random multiple misfire detected, basically meaning that your computer cannot either tell what cylinder is misfiring or multiple cylinders are misfiring. And the next condition is where you get a P0301 through P0308 most commonly, unless you're like in a V10 or V12 or something. And basically that is going to be specific to what cylinder is misfiring. So in the case of my Dodge truck, I had a misfire code throwing a P0306, meaning that the sixth cylinder is misfiring. So what we want to do next is you want to get on the internet and look up basically the firing order of your vehicle. This will tell you what cylinder is where based off the front of the engine, and then you can find it and diagnose it. So once the cylinder is located, there's going to be several things that could go wrong. So I always want to check the connectivity of the wire, make sure that it's pushed down all the way. It may be time for new wires, and you may need to just change all those out. And I'm also going to suggest too that if you check your spark plug, pull it out, see if it's fouled out. How you can tell that is there's a lot of black soot around the spark plug where it's in the ignition chamber. So if there's a lot of soot there, it may be fouling out, and you may have a mixture issue in your vehicle, especially if you have a carbureted engine. That's pretty common to ever get a carburetor tuned right. You have to be like a genius or something. But in most modern vehicles that are fuel injected, that's not a common issue, but it could happen. So you want to check for that. If that's the issue, change your spark plugs. A lot of people, I know some people that would just change the one, and you can. Sometimes you can try to clean them up a little bit, adjust the gap to where it's supposed to be for that spark plug and that vehicle using one of those little spark gap thingies. And you can make sure that that's all good, see if that fixes the condition. If it is the wires, again, you don't want to replace just one wire, you want to replace them all. So let's say you replace all the wires and the spark plugs, and that's it. You still have a misfire. So in different vehicles, it's a different case. In the case of the Dodge, it has a distributor located behind the intake up against the firewall, which is a terrible spot for it. I know Chevy did that too. So you want to check that, make sure there's any cracks. You can look in the distributor cap, pull it off, see if there's any little cracks in there, and the rotor button. Basically, the rotor button spins around and it hits each cylinder as it goes around, and that's basically your spark has gone into the distributor and distributed through that, and as it rotates, it hits each cylinder. Sometimes that gets boogered up, so it's not a bad idea to change the cap and the rotor button. Now, if you don't have a distributor in your vehicle and you have an ignition coil, there's a couple of things that could happen. So in some vehicles, there's what's called basically a cool-on plug. A lot of the 5.4s and the 4.6 Fords have those, where basically every single ignition coil is on top of each plug. There's 8 of them in an 8-cylinder engine. And those have a good way of going out. So you can just replace that plug or that coil, and that will fix the issue. Now, a lot of people recommend changing, if you're going to change one, you might as well change them all. And that's a true case with the Fords, because when I owned a 2003 Ford F-150, it seemed like you would change one out and then 2 more would go out on the other side almost immediately. So it's a good idea if you have it to change it. If you're just trying to get by though and you just want to get one, that'll give you a temporary fix. So some vehicles, in the case of the Jeep or in the Chevrolet Cruze video that you've seen before, if you haven't, go check it out. Is it this side or this side? So if you haven't seen that video, you want to go check it out. But basically, it had one coil that sat on the center part of the engine. The Jeep is this way too. And it basically had 4 spark plug boots, and it just sat down on top of all 4 of them and handled spark for all of that. If that module's going bad, it's going to be a little bit more expensive, but that could be the issue too. So while it's unlikely, it could be a fuel delivery issue if you have a fuel injected engine. So you want to check your fuel injector. Here's how you can do that. So the next test that I did is I pulled the injector wires off and tested the resistance of each one. I did cylinder 8 and cylinder 6 to see if they were consistent. And they are. I got around 12.4 ohms of resistance per injector. So if they're in the same ballpark, I'm not too concerned with that issue. So the injectors appear to be functioning equally, I should say. I'm not sure if that's proper, but they are functioning equally. So if everything looks pretty decent there, the next thing is to check compression. This is kind of a last case scenario. If you haven't seen the video on how to do a compression test, go watch it too. But basically, you can check the compression of each cylinder. I'm not going to show you how to do that because there's a video out there that's a little bit better than this one that can show you that. And see if it matches what your other cylinders match. If you have that one cylinder that has bad compression compared to the other ones, you probably have bad piston rings or something that's causing compression not to be good. And that's a huge issue compared to just changing the spark plug out. You probably have a dead cylinder and have to have some major engine work done. So what can cause a misfire? Moisture condition can cause it. Cracks in the distributor cap or the wires. There's also in some vehicles, like the Mitsubishi Montero, I haven't done a video of that, I actually got rid of it before I started this channel. But basically it had like two coils per, or one coil per two cylinders. It was a 6-cylinder motor driven by a big coil, kind of like distributors are, and that coil could go bad. And that also leads to another thing too. While not common that it would cause a 1-cylinder condition, some vehicles have a coil like this that are ran by distributor that could be fired intermittently, causing an issue. So that's just a few simple ways on how to check the misfire condition at home. As always, there's probably forums that are specific to your vehicle because odd conditions can cause different things. For the example of the Dodge truck, when it was throwing a misfire code, it was also throwing a code for overvoltage, which was kind of strange to me. But then I look in forums and it's actually a common issue. But there was no overvoltage. I checked the voltage, it read perfect. So there's other issues that can be downstream of that. So you definitely want to make sure that you look up something specific to your vehicle too that may help the issue. Speaking of the truck, I put some stickers on it today. So I'm adding some signage to the truck. Now this is just like the vinyl stick-on.
What are you putting on the truck?
What? I'm just trying to add
All
a
this for a measly 100 subscribers? Running the truck like this?
165.
I don't know why we even get that thing around. It barely runs.
Yeah, that didn't go too well. So anyways, if you have any questions as far as a misfire goes, you're always welcome to put them down in the comments. Just want to say thank you to everybody for subscribing. You guys are awesome. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you in the next one. That was an awesome video.